All right, hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Brogan, and today we are back for another trading stream. So far, so good. Not yesterday's stream. Last stream, we obviously went through Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. I believe we did go through SIRP. I don't know if that was the last stream, but I do have some updates on SIRP as per every other coin. Again, today it bounces between covering new TA and obviously looking back at some old TA. So today's one of those ones where we're looking at what we've already talked about, and it's gone pretty well so far. So I'm pretty happy, with what we've talked about so far. And yeah, I mean, I'm getting straight into it. Alpha Doodle Hell to you. Thank you for joining the stream. Get to listen to you on my way home from work. That's nice. Actually, me and Mike were talking about that today. Is certain people have their, obviously, because again, time zones and streaming at different times, and everyone's in their own little areas of if it's morning, night, and all that sort of stuff. And it's nice that obviously, like yourself, Alpha, certain people are the coinciding of their life versus my stream or Mike's stream. They either go to or from work, so it's nice to see that we have a little commonality with certain people where they are driving home or driving to work and they listen to the stream. So that is quite nice. But thank you anyway for joining. KB, shout out to you. Thank you for joining. I don't see Kishan. Normally the literal flash when it comes to these streams. I'm convinced we set up a stream, he joins it, says hello and leaves. I'm convinced. I don't know how he gets here so fast. But obviously in his case it's like midnight, so there's never a perfect time. I've tried to figure this out. I used to stream. I tried to stream at like 5 p.m. Obviously, these were just 9 p.m. Or my time, 9 p.m. anyway. And it's just you can never get. I'm gonna start a timer. I just realized I'm not professional until I start a timer. You can just never get the right time. People. It's either the morning, it's either the night time, anything in between. But regardless, we're here anyway. I'm ready to get onto it. So. Let me just shimmy something over. There we go. 1137, not bad so far. Again, I think the general consensus from last stream, with pretty much everything across the board, was, we were obviously coming down. We were hitting certain areas, and then for me anyway, the general idea was we were going to hit a value above us. Whether that be, whatever it is above us, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and SIRP, and we were going to either continue upwards or we were going to come down. So obviously for Bitcoin's case, we had the resistance. We had a big old order block, literally just as you get into the equilibrium, which we have come into before. Obviously, we've come down now. Obviously, Ethereum found support as well. In the area we were talking about 3,200, 3,300, that whole area. I was saying saying last stream. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see some support. So obviously we have seen that. Solana also really tight support, and with SIRP, I was talking about us bottoming out at the bottom, which has been very nice. So we're going to look at that as well in a minute. But 113, 714, 1% down 24 hour, 3% down 7 days. So again, just a bit of a retracement right now for Bitcoin. 3,600 for Ethereum, 2.5% down, 4.7. I think we hit. Obviously, we came down and obviously had a bit of retracement because again, it is the Tuesday stream. So we'd have the gap between Saturday and Tuesday. During that period, obviously had that move back upwards and have now had that move downwards. So, obviously not saying we've come past where we found support. Obviously, in certain cases for Bitcoin, it is about 111.9. Ethereum, obviously, in this case, was about 3,300. So in this case, being at 3,600, we'd obviously have found a bit of resistance above us. And Solana 164, same scenario there. I think it was 159 where I was talking about support being, or certain support. I think it was somewhere in that area. We'll obviously get into it, but so yeah, we've obviously had a retracement, but again, started to have that move back down again, and seen as though for majority across the board, how deep of a move down we've had, kind of across the board. It seems like we've started this kind of tumbling snowball of movement downwards. Pretty much across the board. So, I would expect this process to continue on the way down. Let's see, 24 hour. This is the second, I think the first time I've seen 24 hour pump actually going upwards. Crazy. I literally came out and just not done anything but go down. But again, I mean, I do this for the vanity. I don't really care. I generally don't really care about most of this. I do actually want to look at SIRP. Because then we can actually look at it in a minute. Yeah, 0.13% up. I think, again, where is the everything? Okay, I don't do this. Where's the... Okay, it doesn't really give like 24-hour and all that sort of stuff, is it? That's not very good. Oh, well, whatever then. Fine. Useless. There might be something here. No. I just wanted to see 24-hour. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let's just move on, okay? Bitcoin. Just made my camera move. Hold on. I need... Whenever I put my hand up to the camera, it goes blue. And it's one of those like special Chinese cameras where like you do something to it and like it'll follow you around the room. But obviously we don't want that right now. So Bitcoin. Let's have a look. It should probably literally just go on the 1 hour. So again, to not obviously reiterate too much of what we already talked about, because you know, I've already talked about this, and like the majority of people here have probably also been in the last stream, so I'm not going to bore you guys with what I've talked about. General idea obviously being these last gaps which we talked about on the daily. Been talking about it since the move up, you know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of process. Obviously the next thing as well, you know, I'm interested in what we're doing and whatnot, and I mean, I think the thing is, it's like we have to compare what we've done last time versus where we are. I think, again, this is something I haven't done in a while, actually, in terms of going on the weekly for Bitcoin. I remember I was quite commonly going on the weekly, you know, before we had, I think it must have been around about in middle of June time. I think we were talking about it around about here, maybe even May time. I remember going on the weekly quite often. On the premise that we had this 90k area, and I know a lot of people have talked about 90k, sub 100k, and all that sort of stuff. Again, I think I'm interested in it. I think my main thing with it is, if you really just look back over every other circumstance we've had, the last two times we've had these moves where we've had these expansions and then these downtrends, which then lead to us filling the rest of this expansionary move and then expanding again, and then doing the same thing here, having this downtrend, filling up or continuing down into the expansion and then expanding again. We haven't had a direct. I'm not saying we have to move every single time exactly like we have previously, because obviously in this case, you know, we have this sort of move here, and then obviously we expand this sort of move going on, or in this case it's more like this, and then we expand. But in this case, it's kind of been a down and an up sort of thing going on. I think comparatively, it may be similar to this in the sense that, you know, we kind of had an expansion and we kind of didn't really expand, and then we expanded again, I suppose. But I still think, regardless of what it looks like right now comparative to the last two times we could look at this, I still think it's still I still think we have the same process, regardless of where we're standing right now in terms of having that recovery mode before we expand higher towards highs and whatnot. But you know, I think from it's like, if we were to really just look at it, it's like kind of clear-cut uptrend. And obviously if we just look at the major highs and major lows, as long as we're not going below 75k and printing and all that sort of stuff and really coming down to 69k, I would not be worried in the slightest, even if we came towards 82k, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, we have so much padding below us, and I'm not saying we do come to here, obviously, you know, it is the weekly, you know, things can change, and this is the thing. It's like, whenever I spend so many streams on the higher time frames like the weekly, like, I think general sentiment, like for example, the amount of times I've been on the daily and said, oh well, we have this 114k area, or we have this 112, 111, 110, we have all this area below us, we have all these areas, and the amount of times I've talked about it on the daily. But the thing is, it's like, this is the daily, this is going to take a while to do, this is a higher time, or relative to whatever time frame you use, but obviously a higher time frame conceptual thing we could do, obviously we have done so far. So it's definitely, there's a lot of room for, not manipulation per se, but specific moments in the market which you know, kind of bring us out of this phase we could potentially be in. So obviously, you know, some external things in the market, or in you know, economically, which kind of not force the price, but cause the price to move in a way which offsets the time which could be expected to move to these areas. In this case, obviously on the daily, it's like, you know, it's like, it's not, this wasn't bad, you know, it's not like I wanted us to come from 123 all the way back down. I wanted to immediately come down. Obviously we had our price process, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, these time frames, I mean, you'll see the same formations on the 50 minutes, let's say, but the 50 minute, it'll take 2 hours to happen. But in this case, obviously, it's going to take, you know, multiple weeks to happen or whatever. Or in this case, obviously, maybe 2 weeks. But obviously, if we go to the weekly and then start to look at, you know, multiple candle moves and all sorts of stuff, this is now starting to be a monthly, 2 monthly, 3 monthly based thing, which happens. But, you know, it's not saying we can't have these big moves. For example, this expansion took 3 weeks. I'm saying, so it's like we can have these expansionary moves, but I wouldn't want an expansionary move downwards. I wouldn't really want like a massive death-causing move down or anything like that. But you know, if we can compare this one, for example, like this is a month maybe. This is about a month of movement, so it's like relative to what we're doing, and the amount of time we have in between, you know, 31 days of candles. You know, there's so many things which can happen, which can slow the move down or stop the move for a time being. So it's like these will take mass amounts of time to happen and process. But I still think, regardless of what time frame you're on, they can still orchestrate price, and you still need to pay attention to them. Obviously, if you were to look at the weekly and it would play no effect on the 50 minutes conceptually, you always have to keep in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, this will take multiple times or multiple weeks to happen. So regardless if I'm on the 15-minute and trading in a day, always just, I mean, again, looking at the weekly and then trading the 15-minute are very outside. You probably want to do the 1 hour and the 15-minute, for example. But you still, obviously, it's still good to keep in mind what could be potentially happening on the weekly or whatever, and just, you know, keep that in mind and just kind of watch to see how it's going on the weekly and if there's signs or anything of the sort. But anyway, I've yapped a bit, to be fair. But still, it still holds on to the fact that I still think we have this this area in between us for about 90k. Still blowers. And again, I'm not saying price, you know, has to 100% guaranteed to come to this area, but I think at least coming into where we are right now with this whole area we've got going on with, you know, 110 and whatnot, as we continue downwards potentially. Anyway, obviously if we go to like 1 hour, 4 hour, whatever, we are clearly in that phase. Clear cut print below the low. Obviously have found resistance in this area here and have continued to come downwards, potentially aiming for the lows again, which is the main thing I'm going to be talking about today, is just aiming for this low. It's kind of clear. It's already mostly happened, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying obviously reverse right now, but you know, we're pretty much kind of having this move down, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is clearly a downtrend. We clearly have started this mass downtrend, coming to this resistance here, and then I've started to print past all this below us, and I've started to aim for the lows, and this is just clear cut that downtrend. Obviously, you know, I'm not going to rattle on about it, but you know what I mean. You know, taking out all this, it's the same thing, you know. So I still think that's kind of the main thing we're talking about Bitcoin. That's why I'm kind of yapping a bit about Bitcoin, because I know what I'm going to be saying right now about Bitcoin is very surface level. So I don't think there's much in depth for me to talk about, because it's kind of already happening. It's kind of already doing its process. You know, with having these massive expansionary candles downwards, which is giving us these nice areas to focus on in terms of movement downwards, obviously having these periods, and if we look kind of into trend, we can see these really nice expansions downwards for these phases. Obviously we can see out, you know, on the way down, we are hitting into these areas quite nicely onto these expansions, obviously aiming up into above equilibrium, aiming into these areas 114k, let's say. Once we see this high in these areas, you know, aiming down again, and just continuing this downtrend pretty much across the board. You know, probably aiming for this higher time, or if you look at the 15 minute, obviously a slightly higher time frame on the 1 hour, or even the 4 hour, or pretty much any time frame. This is clearly the low, even if you go to 4 hours. So clearly aiming for these higher time frame lows as we're continuing this downtrend. So it's a very, like, it's kind of like a one sentence TA. It's like not really much for me to discuss here, because we've already started it, we're already doing it, and it's a very obvious, you know, it's a very kind of surface level move. You know, it's, oh, we're just going down to aim for the low. So again, I can talk a bit more long term, you know, continuing down into these areas as we've already talked about. I do actually want to I'm going to move this to the 1 hour, because this is what the 1 hour is. I'm going to lock this and then show this, because I do want to look at this here, because you can see really nicely, obviously we touched into this 112k area. Obviously this is the areas we were talking about, coming down to these areas. Obviously we now have 110. This isn't necessarily the reversal point, which again, I think, obviously, even though this is, oh, well, this is the reversal area, boom, 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 like, you know, we're coming down, I still think, you know, it's like if you were, there's no chop which goes up forever, you know. So I think even though 112k is, oh, this is the bottom area, we're logging here, let's aim for 125k, boom, here we go, we've hit the bottom, let's go up. We have to bear in mind how we've moved and what we're doing. This is expansionary, you know what I mean? This is expansionary. The normal moves, and you can notice these very often in these areas, especially expansionary versus the retracements. Retracements aren't supposed to be these massive moves. So when you start to see these massive moves in the opposite direction of where your expansion was, it's kind of like it stacks the odds against, not the odds against you, but if you're trying to be someone who wants to be bullish, or if my sentiment right now wants to aim towards being a positive one, and I'm longing at 112k, we've hit back into support, or we've come back into a buy area, and we want to aim to buy back at 112 and come back up all the way towards 125k. You know, coming up into 125.5, for example, it's like, you know, you have to pay attention to how you've moved to get to this period for the buy area. So in this case, in normal examples, obviously we've looked at it, you know, on the 15 minute, for example, when we literally just went on to this. In this case, this is very clear cut. This is what I'm talking about here, where you have these expansionary moves down, but these retracements are more, not structured, but slower, you know? So this is kind of like clearly starting this really nice downtrend. Obviously, this was our kind of change in pace, if you will. Obviously, we had the this was higher time frame resistance. Obviously, if we go to the 1 hour, this was higher time frame resistance. Obviously, found a bit into the midpoint area. This is mainly higher time frame resistance. So looking in between 114 and 115, basically this whole area, just watching to see if we could form some sort of or start to form resistance. Very similar to what we talked about. Very similar to what we talked about in Syrup as well, in terms of the opposite direction. We now, and this is something I focused on really heavily last stream. You know, I do waffle a bit. I do kind of go on to tangents, but I do kind of try to waffle conceptually, just because, you know, I like to do it, in terms of the concept that if you are looking on the 15 minute, which we are doing now, just to look at it a bit more in detail, really one of the main things you want to be paying attention to is higher time frames, higher time frame point of interest, for example. In this case, this being, you know, whatever method you find for resistance, you found it, and then you watch on the lower time frames to see if you respect it and whatnot. So in this case, obviously, having this expansion upwards, having pretty expansionary move, and then you can see here we have this print past on, you know, whatever you want to term it, with these kind of really small print past, and this is like this doesn't necessarily mean, oh, you're in a downtrend, but it's like, okay, cool, we've formed this, or there's going to be a bit of resistance in this area here, or it's a high. Obviously, we had this expansion move downwards, move back up into it, and then move down. This probably high might want to be looked at. Obviously, if we go to the 5 minute here as well, it's like, okay, well, on the 5 minute we have this, you know, these big candles moving downwards, a high here which continued downwards, and then obviously we took the high and then continued downwards. So clearly there's a reason, there's reason why we could continue downwards from this kind of phase, which looks like a bit of a reversal, and obviously we did that and continued downwards from here. So obviously, you know, and then we continued starting to form pretty big, you know, gaps on the way down, and obviously came back to this midpoint, and, you know, just a normal process. So but yeah, the main thing, going back to my main point, I'm going back to the 15 minute in terms of looking at expansion versus retracement. This is a good retracement. You know, this isn't worrying, even though we're spending quite a while, you know. Obviously, we're on the 15 minute, but this is, you know, we're spending quite a while doing our thing. I'm not saying every move up has to be expansionary and every move down has to be expansionary if you are going in that direction, but the general rule of thumb, in my opinion anyway, obviously, is that's kind of what you want to look for, is obviously speed, distance, and time. I'm calling that, not calling that per se, but you know, I'm kind of starting to take that on board in terms of the physics formula, you know, very basic anyway, but physics and that triangle, obviously. You know what, I'm not going to talk about it. This is completely off topic. But yeah, this is, again, this is what I was pointing out. I'm going to move back on now. I need to stop myself from talking, but that's what the point I was making in terms of the difference between the expansions and retracements and how it affects how well you are moving in a direction. So if you start to see really awful moves down and then move upwards, so if it's really like, if you expansion, you know, if you see that and then you start to see like a bit worse move, clearly you're slowing down. It doesn't necessarily mean you're stopping, but you know, you do want to watch how the market moves in terms of, are you showing signs of slowing down? Is it showing signs that you could be reversing and then moving in the other direction? But in this case anyway, we are clearly doing these bigger candles, which is potentially forming a continuation downwards. I mean, again, we see it on the higher time frame here. with you know, these massive expansion downwards, and then this retracement, and now we're starting it again with some bigger down candles. So I just still think we're continuing down towards 111, and I think we're continuing. And so again, going back to this also topic of even though we have this as support, and in theory, if we're looking for retracements, we want to watch for this. The thing is, you know, it's not like we've had a move up and then haven't printed lows, and we've had a move up and a retracement. We've had a move up, and then we've had a really slow retracement, which has produced multiple lows, and then we've had a massive print pass with expansion downwards. So clearly, this is a different scenario from just normal retracement. So I'm still going to use these lines as potential. Not stopping areas, but in terms of if we're coming down, we're doing lower lows. In terms of, okay, the next target could potentially be within the area of 110.7 in terms of coming past these lows and coming down. Obviously, could dip a bit lower for an actual individual gap. Obviously, if we go to the 4 hour and look at individual areas, I don't know why this is so low. Oh yeah, this is because of there. So obviously in this case, you know, we've continued to fill these areas, but in this case, it'll be obviously taking this low and continuing back downwards. So shimming a bit past probably 110.7, but I just still think we're continuing this phase down in Bitcoin. And obviously I've already talked about the weekly and the idea that if we are continuing this move and starting this downtrend and we fill this, obviously, you know, probably finding resistance, but I think regardless of where you're coming into, I think it's a balance between what you have already and what you are producing. So in the example that okay, the balance in between how expansionary you were before this move, so in terms of coming up and having retracements, versus how expansionary you are on the way downwards in terms of if you hold the phase of an actual downtrend, regardless if you're in these areas. And I think if you are so in this case, I think we are. You know, these candles are pretty expansionary downwards. They're not just small retracements, especially if you look at the daily anyway. So for me, it's like, okay, it's a balance between, it's kind of like yin and yang. It's like, okay, well, we've come into this area. I'm not very good at drawing straight lines, but obviously we come into this area, and then it's like, okay, well, we come into this area for this candle, and now we're coming down and probably doing this area, 110 and whatnot, and then it's the same thing if we expand downwards, same thing finding resistance, and then we are continuing that downtrend. So, you know, unless we do a really slow move down and we don't really produce expansionary move downwards, that's kind of the sign of slowing down, if you know what I mean. But I think we're only just starting, so it could be a scenario where we are surpassing these areas and continuing. Obviously, I'm not trying to like, you know, those guys who have the cardboard signs and you're looking at the bus and this guy's like saying the world's going to end. I'm not one of those guys who's got, you know, those signs on me, but you know, if it could be the theory that we could be in the starting of this phase where we want to have this, you know, we've had this kind of general massive move upwards and want us to come back down into it and then have genuine continuation from this area, coming back up to try and do new highs and you know, 130, whatever it's going to be, you know, in these areas at 131, 127, whatever it's going to, you know, this area basically. But again, that's kind of it. The general takeaway is this. I mean, I think we're just moving from these different resistance points and support points. LG to LG. Yeah, I think it's the same concept. I mean, what I draw and what you draw, it's basically the same thing in different formats. On the example, you know, I think you could probably argue what I've just said with exactly what you just said in terms of coming from these candles and then looking at these candles. So, you know, exactly, case in point with what we've had here so far, in terms of coming to these massive expansionary candles, filling these candles, and then coming to the last expansionary candle, filling this one. So obviously in this case, we had this gap. Obviously we've come into it here, and now we're going to be aiming for the next one, coming into some areas down here. So it's just a balance in between what you're doing. I think it's I've just said this, and I'm going to move on to Ethereum in a minute, but it's definitely just the balance in between how you respond off previous price action and what has led you to this response, what has led you to this area from current price action. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me scroll up a bit though before I get back to the start, because there's a lot of actual chat. The weekend low is getting taken. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some point in these areas. Yeah, this area, I think so. I mean, again, it's like this. It's just this. Like, this is this. Like, you trade it. Again, people could trade reversals, fine, but it's like, what's easier to trade? Banking on the idea that you found a swing and you've just traded the top all the way back down to 60k, all this sort of crap, or you're gonna trade the trend. And I guess it's dependent on what time frame you're trading on. I think everything is time dependent. You know, I think time's a massive player in the market. I think this is a very surface level thing to say, but you know, it's like this is one of the surface level things you see when you go search up how to trade. You're like, oh, you learn about a bear trend or a bull trend. So this is a very fundamental phase in the market in terms of actually trending downwards, trending upwards, obviously consolidation, and there's definitely things to focus on. So consolidation, you're focused on that manipulation, or in a trend, you're obviously focusing on if you're reversing and if you're continuing. Obviously that is also dependent on how price is actually moving, whether it be expansionary or you know, kind of hesitant on the market continuing downwards. So in this case, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, we've come down. I know this is very messy. I should probably delete it again. We had this candle. It moved past. Obviously, we moved past all these lows. We're continuing downwards, and then we had this recovery upwards, and then came down, and then found resistance back into it, and came down. Obviously, found resistance nearly at this midpoint, not exactly, and then we actually found really nice resistance a few pennies, maybe a few dollars off the top of this, coming into this equilibrium point, and then we started the reversal, which we were looking kind of at on the 15-minute with this whole move. Obviously finding resistance, or obviously we had these highs, we had this this gap as well in these candles with this high. So we kind of had this high taken and this gap taken, and then obviously we continued downwards, printing past this low. But in this case, the precursor to this was definitely this candle print past this low. That's changing state. We're then looking to see if we do a lower high. If we do, okay, for me watching this, it's kind of like what I was talking about syrup. It's like once I saw, well, if I was to see this, obviously again, this is kind of hindsight in the moment stuff, but if I saw this candle getting printed low, this is change in state. So it's looking to see, are we going to do, I'm not saying we do, because again, it's a precursor, it's not a guarantee. Nothing's ever a guarantee fully. It's more of a, okay, we want to look for a lower high. So until we do this, you can see we have these candles. Once we printed past this area and we've started to do this expansion move downwards, that's like, okay, cool. We're probably looking to see if we continue downwards. And in this case, it's like, okay, well, we've continued downwards. And you could probably look at, okay, you're on the 15-minute here, but you could probably look at, okay, the first initial gap we've produced, you know, we've come down. Price might want to retrace to do a lower low, and then retrace back upwards to do a lower high. And in this case, obviously, we had this really dodgy gap I've drawn. Obviously, we came back to the midpoint, and then from there, you could potentially short. Now you've confirmed that you've printed a lower low, and you're in a downtrend. And then from there, we found this phase, and then we've started this expansion. So, you know, this is kind of the thing I'll be watching for if I was looking at the lower time frames, you know, intraday stuff. So, anyway, I'm going to move on to Ethereum now. Actually, no, I won't. I'm going to look at the chat because there's a lot more I need to talk about. I'm streaming Thursday, Friday. I am knackered, ill. August hung up show. Yeah, don't worry. I've got it. I'm on job. All right. How long before we breach 100k? Probably not long. I mean, again, if we continue this phase, which I think we're doing, I mean, like, what else are we going to, unless we have some magical reversal on some lower time frame shenanigans, I said this like 15 minutes ago. There's not really much more for me to say than, okay, price go down towards low, produce a new low into 110, whatever it's going to be. Obviously, we looked at it on this this area here. Obviously, we've already come to this area. Obviously, it could be 110 area, maybe even looking as deep as these lows. But you know, whatever I look at below us, and we could stop here, or we could stop at 109. If we're continuing this trend, I think we're definitely doing with what we have right here, we're gonna hit all these areas. So it doesn't matter what I say. This is a higher time frame move. This isn't something I'm talking about on the 15-minute, and because if you really look at it, all the stuff I've been talking about since 15th of July, it's not been on the daily. It's been within the 1 hour. It's not mattered on the daily. This is now a higher time frame move. So I think that the price kind of bounces in between. Same thing if I was looking at here. Like, if I was looking at in this phase in between 26th of June to the 1st of July, realistically, there's not really much point in me looking on the daily. I'm going to be looking at the 1 hour. So it jumps between looking at 1 hour TA and trading 1 hour TA than trading daily price reasoning. And I think in this case, what we're definitely doing is doing this daily price reasoning. This is the start of a downtrend. We're continuing. We're doing lows. This is a higher time frame trend. We're doing something on the higher time frame now, which is why we're having such this massive magnitude of movement. So I think from there, I don't want to look fully on the 1 hour because the daily is really where it's going to be orchestrated. So for me, this is going to be obviously filling the rest of this gap, 109.2, probably be tracing back up into resistance and whatnot. I think next phases from there, definitely aiming for these lows. And we've already talked about what we have on the weekly here. And I've obviously really was interested in 90k. Back at, 26th of May, I was talking about 90k. Obviously, we didn't come down. We're aiming for new highs, obviously. But, not obviously, but, we're aiming for new highs. But 90k has always really been on my mind since we saw it, back at basically the latter end of May. So I think we can really just start to focus on the higher time frames now and just ride it out. Obviously, you can trade, again, I think, it's bias. Daily, if we're consolidating, we want to pay attention to if we have not manipulative movement, but, want to watch for, okay, lower time frame reversal, which kind of has the domino effect of starting the higher time frame movement. But in this case, we know on the daily that the sentiment is kind of overarchingly bearish. It's kind of really heavy bearish. So we can use that on the lower time frames, but it's kind of just easier to look at the daily and go, okay, we're continuing downwards, and watching the daily and watching the higher time frames until we hit that stopping point. In my personal opinion, again, it's my personal opinion. Kishan, chat to you. I was saying earlier, I think, right, because obviously Kishan always seems to be the first comment. I think, right, when we set up the new streams, before I go live, I think he comes into the stream, comments and leaves. He has to. He's so fast. But thank you for being a Kishan. Appreciate you. I'm blessed to attend Bro TA. I'm blessed to have you here. I'm blessed for all of you to be here. Okay, it's. I would be doing this for 0 people. You know what I mean? Like, this is. I'd be doing this by myself. I'd be doing this for however many people ever come along. You know what I mean? I'm always going to be doing this unless I lose my arms and legs and I physically can't do it anymore. I'd probably get one of those little joysticks with the mouth and move it with the mouth. But, I'd try. What's 800 in MA indicator? Well, moving average. I haven't looked at a moving average in ages. I don't know. I mean, I probably couldn't educatively give a good analysis using a moving average because I don't use them. But, I mean, I can bring it up to see if there's anything interesting. I mean, I don't want legs. I don't EMA. I need simple, don't I? Is it? No, I don't want any of that crap. I need to get rid of all this. I don't use that anymore. I need to get rid of this crap. I don't use any of this. I'm sorry, Kishan. I'm gonna move on. Let me scroll up a bit. The bull market support band. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll get there. Probably, continue from there. But opinion. No. I will look at the moving. I'll do a simple moving average. Simple. Just give me the moving average, please. That's so hard. Why is it so hard? Am I stupid? Maybe I'm stupid. Oh, I don't want. Oh my god. Just give me one, man. Is this it? Why is there so many? Oh my goodness me. All right, 800 moving average. Let's look at it. I'm looking at 800. All right, let's see what is going to be on the 800 moving average. Let's see. Is this even possible? Is this even possible to do? Yeah, it's going to be possible to do. 65.6. Is this dependent on time frame? Because obviously the amount of candles you look backwards. I think it is, isn't it? It is. It is. Okay, it is. What time frame? Give me a professional time frame, Shan. Different models, same result? Absolutely. I'd hope so. It's got 80k. Again, I think 90k was my low. Obviously, it can fill in between. I don't think it even goes 80k. I think even 80k is a bit shavy, or whatever you want to say. I don't know. I don't know personally, but I will never fully know. I could be wrong, but 90k was definitely one of the targets. I do want to be fair though. Actually, I do want to see. I should probably look back on this whole move because we've produced a new high. I want to look here and see where it comes to here. I think it hits about 89k for me anyway. 86, although yeah, somewhere in that area, I think. Somewhere in that area. Actually, let me draw it. Actually, obviously, I drew it when I drew it when it was like this, and it gave a general idea of. Well, to be fair, it's about 85k. It's going to be a bit higher now, though, to be fair. But it's within this. I think about 90k was my area. 88.8, and again, this is arbitrary. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to hit 88k, but this is kind of rule. A good target. In theory, a good target you might want to aim for. But obviously, you can look individual candle basis and look at the midpoint of stuff, which obviously was the area which sits about 93, or in this case 93k. But if I go some lower time frames, we have individual moves here, which if I start to draw them, results in these kind of general midpoints. So obviously in this case it's about 89k in this case as well. So it's within these areas. I think it's more of a rule of 90 is possible from all-time high. Yeah. I mean, again, I think it depends, obviously. I can't remember what I think I drew it from here. I don't know how I got on that 90k exactly, but it's within this like 89, 90 area. It just, I don't want to go for it actually, but here we go. But to be fair, it's just really much this one. There's nothing really here. There's nothing really here apart from where we've had. It's basically here in this area, and the general midpoint is about 89.5-ish, 89 whatever, which sits basically at this midpoint 88.8. Not saying this is the high and this is where we're coming to, but it sits within this area. So again, I would want to watch it as we go. I'm not saying this is guaranteed, because again, obviously people can look at stuff and get a really good low, or in this case low, and get it pinpoint. But for me, I also want to watch it. I want to watch it to see what we're actually doing in the moment, because nothing. It's not like the stars have aligned and I can guarantee a price 2 months down the line. It's definitely situational, but it's kind of this is definitely an area to focus on. I completely think this is definitely an area to focus on. I'm going to delete this though. I'm going to move on to Ethereum. I always do this. I always spend so long on Bitcoin, but you know what I mean. So Ethereum, pretty good. I think out of everything I've talked about Bitcoin, I know I was looking at 111.5 and stuff like that. Obviously the blue line was 112, which was the main area we were looking at. Obviously I was talking about us going lower, which I think we are going to do. I think out of what I've talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Syrup, everything other than Bitcoin is quite nice. So in terms of, obviously we looked at what I was talking about was I think I drew this. I redrew it obviously before the stream to show it. But basically what I was talking about last stream was even though the retracement should be deeper than this 3,300 area, and I was saying I do still think we come down to these areas about 2,750. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see some sort of support in this period. But obviously you can see, we've printed past these lows, we've continued downwards. Obviously in this case we've found support and we've continued back upwards and done our thing, if you will. And obviously equal highs here, obviously took this high and whatnot. But it was pretty nice actually. It was very close. It was maybe $1 off. Again, I would have to watch it in the moment. I wouldn't want to guarantee it, but I'm going to go back to the 4 hour. Actually, it's a bit too tight, or it's a bit too wide. There we go. So pretty good so far. Obviously, basically the whole of what I talked about in what I looked at Ethereum on last stream was 2,755 as a really good target for the super low. Super low, you know what I mean, and obviously 3,300 area, basically the midpoint of this. Not saying the midpoint is arbitrary, but not saying it has to be the midpoint, but some sitting within this buy area, obviously at least taking out this low. We probably could have looked at this in terms of being the last kind of low. Obviously we could look at it here, but I've already drawn this, and it is at I've already drawn this at the major low to the major high, but obviously we can look at it, let's say on the 4 hour, and look at these individual moves, for example, and start to look at, okay, this is past equilibrium. So once we get past these areas, we want to start to focus on looking for a long, or looking at maybe a bit of a support point from this retracement. But again, regardless of what we have done on retracement, we've come past this major low, and we had this massive area. It's very similar to Bitcoin, very similar to pretty much everything, obviously. we actually used this high as our main area, which I just drew, but obviously show an example of it. We had this area. I kind of just marked out this area and this area. In this case, we looked at the first not presented, but the first initialized main area, if you will. Very not very muddy phrasing there, but we targeted higher back up into this area, and obviously we can start to look at, very similar to what we've been doing with Bitcoin, we can start to look at these areas, and what we can see here, we did look pretty nice at this blue area. Again, arbitrary area to focus on, not so much as a guarantee, but once you start to get above equilibrium, I've said it so many times, I know. Once you start to get above equilibrium, you then want to start to watch for how you're moving in price. If we jump to the 15-minute, we could probably start to watch this. As you can see, like, even when we get above equilibrium and we're getting to the midpoint of this area, we're expanding. You know, our price is expanding. We probably don't want to watch for this. But again, normal price action, still expansionary. And again, once we start to get above. Again, once we're above equilibrium, that's okay, cool. We want to watch to see if we reverse all this sort of stuff. Then we're in this area. Now, this area is like, okay, cool. This might be the area to focus on as a general rule of thumb. And again, it doesn't have to happen, but, in this case, it's general area. And then we can look back as well. We also want to think about looking back. We're at this gap. On the 15-minute, what do we have? Well, we had this 3,600 area. We have these equal highs here. We actually have these equal candles here, which actually could potentially form this resistance for these candles and continue downwards. So we have a bit of resistance in this general area, about 3,723. We also have, this is kind of already been done, but mainly this is what I would focus on, these equal highs and this gap. That could be a general rule of thumb. And in this case, what do we do? Well, in this case, obviously this is the kind of the most significant low on the 15-minute. This would kind of just be what I would want to focus on printing past. Obviously, we did that. So once we've actually printed past this within, about 5 a.m. Again, I wouldn't be watching this 5 a.m. I wouldn't be awake and watching the charts at 5:15 or anything like that. So this obviously wouldn't be a thing I'll be watching. But from there, it's like, hey, we form these massive areas. Actually expanded past this, which is pretty impressive for price. But obviously, we have certain areas behind us which we could focus on. But anyway, that would just to watch what we would be doing on 15 minutes in terms of if we were reversing. But again, to go back to the high time frame, rule of thumb, okay, we're in a good area to focus on a short or to find a lower high. So in this case, we've done that. And again, very similar to Bitcoin. I'm probably going to move to Solana in the next 3 minutes because we've come past this major low on the high time frames. We've retraced back upwards, and we've retraced into doing a lower high into the general area for resistance. So what are we going to be doing? Well, let me also delete these changes as well, because we don't really need them. And I'm going to I don't want to delete, I'll delete these gaps because, again, we've already kind of utilized what we've done. So from here, it's like, okay, we've done that low, or we've done that high. We've had that retracement. What are we going to be aiming at? There, So I think we continue downwards for Ethereum, and I think this is kind of a global thing. And again, this goes back to the topic of what we talked about with Bitcoin in terms of the main focus we've had since middle of or basically the start of the move upwards, and then we've had this consolidation for like a whole month or whatever it's been. The whole time we've been looking at this Bitcoin and pretty much every other coin has been on the 1 hour, been on lower time frames. So we've now started in this high time frame daily trend, if you will, or price action, where, okay, on the daily we've printed past the low and now we're targeting lows. So on the daily, this is something we can watch on. So it's like, it's going to be very easy for us, or easy for me to talk about this on the 4 hour and stuff, because it's happening on a larger scale. So it's more of a general thing. Yeah, I can go to the 1 hour and look, okay, well, on the 1 hour, we're kind of in this trend. Obviously, we've started we've started printing lower lows, lower highs in this case, but there's not really much for him to say. I think we've done our high, and now I think we can continue down to the low. So I'm gonna leave it there really for Ethereum, because there's not much else to say about that. And again, I've already talked about my my targets anyway. Obviously, aiming around these areas in between, because again, even a blue area, it's the blue. Oh, guys, and I think if I was to not draw anything about price action and just look at the blue line, I would be a fool, right? I'd be an idiot, because again, that's going back to. And again, I think certain things, there are, occasions where you can draw something which is obviously in this case percentage based, because again, it's like 0.7 This is all, you know, percentage between 0 and 1. So it's yeah, I think there's percentage things which can be something which is consistent, but I think if I don't couple in targeted areas like below an equilibrium with price action, then it's kind of, you know, it's kind of arbitrary. You know, it's kind of just, you know, not really. It's not really useful anymore. So in this case, for example, it's like, okay, we had this whole phase where we've come up, and again, I probably should draw the low from here, looking at the 4 hour, but I drew it from on the higher time frame, and we only just shimmied past equilibrium into this area before we produced that low and then started the uptrend. So it's like, you know, it's all relative to what we're doing, and in this case, it's relative to what you look at. And this whole phase, this on the higher time frame, the midpoint was above equilibrium, so it's really just aiming at this area. It's like we've already found this major gap which is above equilibrium, so the likelihood chance is we're not really gonna, and this is looking back anyway, obviously this is old TA, but the likelihood chance is, looking at this major area of between 1800 and 2500, is you're not really gonna, you might not dip really deep into that 1800 if you're recovering the majority of these lows, you know, all these lows, you know, you've basically come past all these lows with this move down, and you're fulfilling this expansion from this move up. So it's like the likelihood chance is you're probably not going to dip that low, because you're going to be fulfilled what needs to be fulfilled, or whatever you have we want to say, and then continue onwards. So in this case, we have to pay attention to this. We do have some lows here, and yes, that we do have this major gap at about 2,800. We also have this low, and then the gap at about 2,700. So I do think it resides within this area. And if we go to maybe even the 1 hour, actually, just to really see it in a bit more detail, it really sits, this is definitely, I think, very important, actually, especially for all these lows here, or this major low anyway. It could definitely be very important at 2,850, but it could be equally as important on this gap at 2,700, but it averages out about the midpoint anyway. So I think if you look at it, just to give an easy answer, you know, just drawing the entire move from every candle, no matter what, and then getting the midpoint gives a good average as to where the potential move could be. So in this case, obviously 2,750. So, you know, I've already gone into that in a bit more words last stream, but that's kind of generally where I'm going to, and what we've looked at in terms of our low. So that's really all I can really say about Ethereum right now. I think we'll continue downwards. We're going to produce a new low. I could probably actually look at where we could produce that low. I think if we could probably draw this. Here we go. This is what I can do. From this low, a decently major low, to which it initialized this whole move to this high, it sits 3,200, and obviously we have this major gap here. We have this wick here, which can be obviously an interesting low. Maybe we also have this. Obviously, we took this low, but in this case, we do have this major gap here, which basically sits exactly in between. Because if you look, obviously, we wouldn't really want to draw the gap starting from here, because we've already dipped into it, which obviously produced this. Actually, this is also a bit of support, you know, coming back into this candle and then having this massive engulf, which came back. This is actually going to be a bit of a support point as well to maybe look at. But obviously not too important. If we draw it properly, there we go. We can actually see we wicked to the midpoint of this. So again, same concept in terms of we had this expansion. We had this candle coming into this gap, which then engulfed here and then came back down for these candles which found support and obviously continued upwards. This is a support candle, if you will, whatever you want to say. Actually, we found support at this. Obviously, I know everything's in hindsight and whatnot, but looking into it in a bit more detail on the 4 hour, we actually found our support at that midpoint, which is very interesting. So again, it's kind of just, once you get past that equilibrium, it's really just looking at where you want to look at. And again, also here we had these triple lows here. Same thing we had on Solana as well. So we see these equal lows, we see this engulfing candle, we see this candle. This is definitely going to be a high targeted area in between 3,362, this whole area. Also the midpoint of the gap on the daily. So again, a really high stacked area. But I think we can continue. I mean, I don't necessarily think we do the low at 3,315. I mean, I think that's very close. I think we want to dip a bit lower. And from there, what do we have next? It is going to be this gap, which resides about 3,250. So aiming at that kind of midpoint, 3,229, fulfilling this leftover. This is also going to be another gap here. You can see as well. We have this whole thing. Let me draw it, actually. There we go. This... Actually, no, I don't think... No, this won't actually be, because this isn't... Because the difference between there and there is this secondary candle actually retraced into this gap and then came upwards. So this isn't going to be a gap. I have lied to you all. I do apologize, but it's my main focus, really just looking at it here, is going to be this area, which sits at this blue line like I've already talked about, which is 3,229. So that's what I'm going to leave off with on Ethereum. In terms of our next low, probably sitting in that area. Again, obviously I could be wrong, not financial advice, all this sort of stuff, but yeah, this is what I would leave it off with Ethereum. So jumping onto Solana now to have a little nosy at what we have done so far. So did do a nice low. I think I was talking again Saturday 6. I think I talked about this being the low. Obviously retracing into the gap areas. I think I drew this, the trail. Yeah, I did draw this, and you can see we actually just dunked off this high here. So I'm gonna hide this. I'm gonna hide a lot of this actually. Oh no, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make a second. I know it's monstrous. I do apologize. I'm going to hide this. There we go. So we can look at it in an individual level. So I do want to redraw this just so we can see it again and just see the general equilibrium and what we've been doing. So you can see above equilibrium. Now we want to start focusing. What do we have in our area? Well, it's mainly this gap here. Okay, we have this gap. I do want to go to the 1 hour though just to see. Now what do we have? We actually have some highs here. This high, these kind of equal highs in this area. So if we draw that across, that actually seems to slightly look like where we aimed at. We don't really have gaps. It kind of, I'm going to draw it back here. It actually sits at this point and this point here, which we actually just wicked into, but it was mainly this high. Obviously, we actually had this candle, which came back up into this gap here and then engulfed. So actually, we do have a resistance in this singular candle. If we go to this, we can see if we have it. Actually, yeah, that's about right. On this, there we go. So we can see we engulf this, and then we've kind of used it as resistance in this area. Obviously, wicked nearing the midpoint. Obviously, not quite at the midpoint. So if we shimmy this across, I want to see how this responded. We can see we didn't quite hit. It's very slightly off by a few pennies, hitting off into these certain areas, but a general resistance point in this area as well. Obviously, taking this high and kind of wicking into. I mean, this is arbitrary because again, the difference between this is we should probably want to start this gap here because obviously we've already creeped back up into it here. So realistically, there's nothing really aiming here apart from this this gap, which got engulfed, and then this high. Obviously with these equal highs here as well, which if we draw this along as well, we can see we kind of already used here, which actually formed a triple high thing going on. But in this case, obviously we had this a similar thing here. We had this gap or this candle even. Actually, I want to see it quickly. So we had this move, and then we had this engulf down here, which then moved back upwards. So looking at kind of this move for this last candle being support. So if we draw that across, we had that midpoint here. So again, obviously wicking, we actually formed 6 highs here. We can see these 3 highs here, and then obviously we had, actually no, 5 highs, I lie, we had 5 highs, and obviously we wicked up into it, a little shimmy. Obviously resistance in this main area. You can see that this line is here, and then this is equilibrium. So came into this area, and then obviously retraced into support and then come upwards and had a decent expansion. But again, from here, this is not a higher time frame, but we're above equilibrium. We've come to resistance. We've taken this high as well. So instead of us looking to continue this, we're just like, okay, cool, we might reverse now. We might reverse. And then obviously in this case, massive expansion. This is kind of a good sign, to be fair. Probably go to the 15-minute here just to watch it. And obviously in this case, I mean, it's kind of like an equal side where we've had expansion upwards and expansion downwards, and then we had this retracement, and then we're starting this massive move downwards. So clearly this was our main area, which formed the high, which caused the whole reversal, coming above all this basically. But yeah, that's kind of just kind of trailing along the TA from basically since Saturday, looking at this move upwards, looking at our reversal, and then coming downwards. And again, same thing I've said for Ethereum and same for Bitcoin. We've started this high. We've done this lower high in our move downwards. We've printed past this low. We've actually printed past this low as well. And if not, you've even printed past the candles here. We've moved past this, and now we've come back upwards. Found our resistance in this retracement. Looking at this, we've come in above equilibrium into this retracement. Found our resistance. If it goes back to the 1, I found our resistance. Done a lower high, and now we're coming down again. Whatever you pay attention to, this could be the low. We've come past that. This low, come past that. We're also chasing this area down here, starting to try and come past this whole move we've had. So you know, just continuing. And again, even if we retrace from some of these lows which get, you know, taken, we have these massive expansions, and we have this equal high which came into this slightly came into this gap here, and that's pretty much it. There's quite a bit of resistance here. Also want to be looking at let me do this. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. And just delete some of this. Whoops. Delete some of these things I've just drawn. Oops, there we go. And then we want to trail this low. If we start to have a little reversal on some lower time frames, whatever, come back up. But even if we take this lows, for example, it's going to sit within, you know, this gap. And if we even continue a bit lower towards these lows, you know, down here, this starts to reside into here, and aiming above equilibrium to aim at resistance in this massive expansionary area, which has brought us quite deeply down for Solana. So I do think we're continuing this downtrend in this normal lower high, lower low, you know, aiming probably still towards $155 for Solana. So I think we're continuing this. And again, I think today's stream is very easy for me because it's very easy to talk about what we've got going on. Unless I'm getting blindsided right now and the market's trying to, you know, pull a famoose, and it's just, I'm just completely, you know, not, you know, clocking it. I think we're continuing. I mean, I think it's very procedural. I think it's very, what's the word for it? Like, you know, I think the continuation is very straightforward for what we have so far. And again, I think my message so far, because again, this is, as I've already said like 3 times, this is a higher time frame, you know, daily. We've been waiting for this move, to be fair. So it's very easy to talk about because this is happening across the board. So pretty much everything I've talked about is, I can maybe, I mean, actually, I don't know about syrup, to be fair. I do want to move on to that, obviously segueing it as well. I will be talking about what we talked about back here and then seeing what we're doing now. Actually, no, before I do that, I want to talk about my low area for Solana. Have I talked about my low area? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to do that. I mean, you know what? I'm going to delete this group. Ooh, wait, no, do I? No, this is some high time frame stuff, to be fair. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, daily. Let's see. I think Solana's not in a different scenario per se, but we haven't really had that expansion per se. I mean, we have some high lows, or not high lows, but we have some like important lows potentially. But realistically, I mean, apart from what I just shown with this, which obviously we kind of wicked into, there's not much to aim for apart from some lows. You know what I mean? And if we look at a daily in comparison, we haven't had, you know, we had a massive run up. Again, obviously everything trailed along. We had a Bitcoin first and Ethereum and Solana in terms of the money flow and whatnot. We haven't really had a major print below a low on daily. Obviously, we could probably pay attention to maybe $175 in this area. We printed past this area and continue downwards for expansion. Regardless of what we're doing, I do think we're in a downtrend. These are expansionary candles. So regardless if we printed past, 156 or we've printed past 137, this is an expansion. This isn't just a retracement. This is a massive expansion. We haven't had, you know, it's not like we've had a normal move down. I mean, it's not super, you know, ridiculous, but it's definitely especially in this case, very expansionary. You know, it's not been a normal retracement. You know what I mean? Like this case, even though we came past these lows, this was a good retracement. This is an expansion, I would argue. But again, that might be wrong there. Obviously, that's my personal opinion. But yeah, in terms of what again. Same thing, we've got this resistance here. You know, we're going to see resistance here. We might have already seen resistance here, and we're continuing downwards. And I don't think I don't think we're going to see a low at 154. These lows could look very interesting to me. Just as a first glance, these lows are very interesting. Getting past these lows as well, aiming maybe 145, even towards the bottom of this general optimum range here. But I think if we pay attention to what the market could be doing in terms of across the board, I think this is quite the move is, I think the longevity of this move could last a while in terms of just a general downtrend across the market. So I think this could edge very close to just continuing downwards on and on and on for Solana. And again, in terms of latency, again, Bitcoin was first, then Ethereum, then Solana. So I think Bitcoin obviously saw its print past the low first, then Ethereum. So I think for Solana, we could have more of a rapid move down to aim for the major low, 126, to see that major daily print below a low, which we haven't seen quite yet on Solana in comparison to Ethereum and Bitcoin. So we could see a bit of, you know, major pain on Solana, potentially. But as I see it right now, we're continuing this downtrend, obviously probably aiming towards 145 for some of these lows and this general area coming past, again, the low we've already produced. in a downtrend anyway, and just taking out, internal areas on our way, on this way up anyway, on the way down, taking out internal areas, these lows, obviously just this whole, basically this area, and obviously we have this low here, and then we do have that low, I suppose, but it's the major low and these lows, I would say personally. That's pretty much Solano. It's pretty much 10 o'clock. I will talk about syrup for maybe 5 minutes, so you know what I mean. That's the wrong chart. I'll look at the chat though. I do want to see the chat. ETH, I think 2600, but staking is coming, so not all doom. Yeah, I think there definitely are externals. I think obviously buy rumor sell news, all sort of malarkey. So I think there is also that idea where people have already heard about this stuff in terms of, oh, there's going to be a staking, oh my goodness, and then they're going to buy Ethereum, and then when it comes out they're going to sell. Do you know what I mean? So there's that aspect of it. So yeah, I think we could also pay attention to that in terms of the actual magnitude that would that announcement would kind of have on Ethereum. 3 lows or bottom will complete soon. Are you talking about you think the bottom could be soon in terms of this downtrend? It could be. I mean, again, I'm a bit of a negative Nancy today. I've already, in terms of what we have on Bitcoin, the 90k potential, and just I'm not saying we come to it in the next week, because again, I've already talked about the time, not a distortion of time, but in terms of what there is on the time basis. So I've lost it on. My train of thought's gone. I'm gonna drink some water. But yeah, in terms of it could take multiple weekly candles in terms of relative time frame. Again, it could be one candle. I won't deny it, but it will take multiple time. Quite a few candles probably to continue. Again, as it cascades to the daily. If you look at the daily from the weekly, or the 4 hour from the weekly, it's more of a downtrend. So it's like, if we have this move down and move up, which is a normal move, which we want to happen anyway. So it's like, okay, we have this move, we have this continuation. So it's like, okay, we want that. So on the weekly, it might just look candles down, but on the daily, it's going to be a downtrend, whatever. I'm already talked about it. Okay, syrup, downtrend, clear. What do we talk about? I did want to have a little glance at this, because we were literally I was literally talking about syrup reversing as it reversed. I'm pretty sure. Look, I talked to. Oh no, it was here. I was already looking at this, and I was saying, I think we could reverse. Looking at what we've done so far, I think this is a reversal point, and we have reversed. This was a reversal, because again, I already talked about. I don't know who was here. I don't know who was here who really wanted to look at syrup. I don't think they're here today. Actually, I'll look at the chat actually in a second. But basically, my main point was looking at these lows, looking at the midpoint of this higher time frame support on the daily. I think it was, yeah, the daily support here with this engulf, and then support at midpoint. This was the major stuff. So what I was saying on the 50-minute last stream was, the likelihood chance that this is probably going to be a bottom for syrup is very high in my opinion, because we have these 2 lows we've taken, we have the equilibrium of this support, and then we have this line. Oh no, this is just retracement. Okay, fine. We have these 2 blue lines and this green one. This is equilibrium of the support on the daily. We have these 2 lows on the 4 hour, which we've taken. I think, or we've worked past anyway, because again, relative, if you look at the 4 hour, it's going to be a wick. So if we go to 4 hour, you know what I mean? We didn't really print past it, majorly. Majorly anyway. We pretty much was a wick. Obviously, on the 15-minute was more of a print. But so yeah, my main thing for syrup, I was looking at was this being a reversal, and us continuing upwards, which makes sense. Again, we produced a low in this area. We are now in a downtrend. We want to produce the low, which we obviously have done. If you look at printing past this, we have a massive expansion downwards. We're going to be retracing back up into this area. Massive resistance, and doing another low, as the market is doing. And we think about this. Bitcoin, money flow. Think about what we talked about. Money flow. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then continuing down to altcoins. So I'm not surprised syrup has only really just done its potential lower low, and is starting to retrace into a massive gap. because of the way the money flow in theory works in terms of it goes to Bitcoin, then Ethereum, then Solana, then altcoin, and it cascades downwards. So again, there's no surprise here for me personally that this is now only starting to retrace back upwards and probably will very soon see some sort of resistance in this area and continue back downwards. Do you know what I mean? So, opinion, obviously, but again, like looking at like this, like obviously this high, we have this high here from this retracement, we have this high, we have this gap, 48.7. Again, we even have this high, which could potentially be a bit of a painful one. If you look here, obviously we produced this gap, 3 candles downwards, produced a gap, came up towards at least midpoint, had a wick here. We have the potential for this to be outstanding as well, and then we continue downwards. So again, even at 46, which doesn't quite sit at this equilibrium, but again, you know, it's everything's in hindsight, everything's in you have to go case by case. You know, you can't just stick one thing on one chart permanently. Look at these highs, Jesus. This is going to be, you know, a bit of a painful one. But yeah, well, you know, I think we're on our way up. And you can even see it on the 4 hour. We had this low. We have this. You know, you can see like we had this move up, which printed past this high. We've clearly done this reversal from that 15 minutes. So it was very nice to see. And this is what I've talked about all. You know, I've said on Bitcoin every few times, I would want to look at the 15-minute to watch if we're reversing and all that sort of stuff, because as I talked about last stream, in terms of, I think this is going to be a reversal, and this was the reversal. It's like, because again, you know, TA on the lower time frames, if it continues to do, let's say the 50-minute, let's say the 1 hour is going down in a downtrend, or whatever, and on the 50-minute is starting to go up. If you continue that 15-minute, and this is really not a complex thing, I'm not saying this is a really complex thing for syrup. If you continuously have bullish candles consistently on the 15-minute multiple times, it will play effect on the market, because the market is one thing, it's just a different way of looking at it. So again, it's like, even though the 15-minute looks like it's bullish but the 4 hour is bearish, it's still the same price. It's just representative of what the price is doing during those time periods. So 4 hour basis, you know, 4 hour candles, or 15-minute. So it's like, if I'm looking at the 15-minute for a reversal, this still has an effect on the 4 hour if it continues to play out. So in this case, we took the lows, we found equilibrium of the support we have back here, we produced this low, we were starting to reverse on the 15-minute, we expanded upwards and then came back up into it. So, because like on the 15-minute, it was like this, or something like that. It was something along those lines. I can't remember what it was. This is reversal. So it's like, on the 50-minute, we start a reversal, which shows signs that the 50-minute is going to continue to go upwards. So again, if the 50-minute is going to continue to go upwards, what's going to happen to the 1 hour? What's going to happen to the 4 hour? It's going to start to go upwards and start to eventually become into a bullish trend, or eventually start to see that low. And in this case, obviously, we had this this gap. Again, this was a quite slow retracement, or quite a slow expansion with this massive candle upwards and a massive candle downwards. And you can see here, there's no gap. There's no gap here. In between this candle and this candle, there's no gap, realistically. So yeah, I mean, again, we did kind of see a bit of a gap, you know, a bit of a hesitation here. But again, it allowed us to, this awful gap allowed us to expand upwards, and now we're starting to see us come into these next areas on the way upwards. So we've got this consolidation. This is clearly a consolidation, clearly a manipulation. We're gonna continue. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at, oh, actually, to be fair, consolidation. We've manipulated, we've come down, we've filled this gap. This is very nice TA, actually, to be fair. It's really nice TA. I'm going to get rid of this, actually. I'm going to look at this a bit better. Really nice stuff going on here. In terms of... Did I just brush that? I don't know. Here we go. Really nice TA. So, obviously, we had this consolidation, highs and lows. Manipulation. And then we... we distributed down to fill the rest of this, and now we've produced that higher low from this period. Again, this is an order block as well, because we've come into obviously a point of interest and we've engulfed it. So clearly we want to be drawing one of these here. And if we look at the midpoint of it and whatnot, we can see obviously we have there we go. We produced it, obviously came down, found the midpoint, and then continued upwards. So really nice here. I don't know why I'm on replay. Really nice here. This is actually really nice here on the 1 hour here. But again, we formed this higher low support expansion. This is really good move. So I think we're continuing upwards. So I think we're at least coming above equilibrium, and again aiming for midpoints, aiming for these areas. Really, you know, big gaps here. This, you know, very important high, very interesting high here. Obviously, this little gap here, not really big gap. For me, it's really kind of this area. I would argue this area. And again, I would want to watch on the 15-minute. I'm going to want to watch it. But I would argue this it is probably the area to watch for. Maybe this one as well, to be fair. In terms of 14, kind of 49, pretty much. 49 exactly. Really just watching for this area. So again, really nice TA on the 1 hour here. So yeah, let's see how it goes for Syrup. But I think, again, and this is pretty, like I've already said, the idea of the cascading and whatnot in terms of money flow. So I think this is I think this is a pretty good situation for Syrup so far. I think we're continuing upwards. So yeah, do with this as you will or whatever. But 50 cent, 49 in this area. I'm trying to pinpoint, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to pinpoint an exact area. I think if I just really look at the 4 hour, I think it's realistically just going to be within 49 cent. This isn't really good. I mean, we have these highs here, I suppose, at 52, which could be, the area to maybe focus on. But I think realistically, it's going to be, as a main focus for me, at about 49 cent. So that's what we'll hopefully see with Syrup as we continue upwards. But again, we'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty happy. I'm really happy with how Syrup's moving so far. It's been really nice. I think, obviously, Bitcoin, I was kind of exaggerating 111.5, 111k Bitcoin. Obviously, we had 112, the blue line, which obviously was the main area on the daily for Bitcoin. But I think so far, everything across the board we've talked about last stream has played out really nicely, especially Syrup's reversal and it coming upwards. Really nice. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, continue this. And yeah, that's what I think. I'm done now. 11 minutes over. I always manage to go 15 minutes over. That is my rule. 15 minutes over. Actually, you know what? I should aim for I should put the timer for 45 minutes at this point. Let me read the chat. It's been a long time since I read the chat. Tariq, you joined us near the end. Thank you for joining regardless. So, Movie Maker Kishan. You know what? I'm so excited for that to come out. I'm so excited. Yeah, that's gonna be great. Selling $1 eventually. Maybe not soon. Hold on to Syrup a bit longer. I'm not gonna lie. You might want to hold up a bit longer. But yeah, $1 will be good. Obviously, $1 will be great. But you might want to hold on to your Syrup a bit longer for $1. But again, that's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. So, you know what I mean. But that's it. I'm done. I think that was a good stream. Not bad. 11 minutes over. Not bad. I'm getting a bit better, a tiny bit better. But I can never help myself. But I think I went live maybe like 2 minutes after 9, so it's maybe about 10 minutes even. So I don't think that's too bad, especially for me with my bigger mouth over here and all these words which come out. I don't think it's that bad. So yeah, thank you all of you for joining. Whether you joined 2 seconds ago, 2 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, or at the start of the stream, I do thank you for sticking along with the stream. Thank you for listening. Or not listening. Maybe you turned it on, you didn't listen. But being here regardless. Yeah, I will be back. It's Tuesday today. We're not doing anything Wednesday. You know what I might do? I might make my own quiz. Because I am doing some updates to it. Some animation things and some like little sounds to the app. So it's not like a big update. It's not like a fundamental massive update. But I'm updating it. But we are going to miss tomorrow, but I might do my own little one tomorrow or something like that. I don't know. That is obviously, I'm not guaranteeing that at all, but you'll hear from me before it happens, just to keep it going, because I enjoy doing the quizzes regardless. So you might see me do it again, but other than that, I'll be back Thursday, guarantee, to see how the TA goes. Obviously, hopefully it does go well. I'm pretty confident in what I've talked about so far. I don't think it, because again, sometimes the charts can be really noisy, really messy, and it does get a bit difficult to really pinpoint what you're doing. But I think so far has been pretty good. I think it's very laid out what we're doing, especially seeing as though it's coming from a scenario on the higher time frames. Coming down into these higher time frame gaps and point of interests. I really think this is very orchestrated, really easy to talk about. So obviously, I'll be back on Thursday to have a look, and I'll be back Saturday, and yeah, I'll be in Instagram for discussions and whatnot if they spawn, and that's pretty much it. You might see me tomorrow. I'll try. I might make a little quiz. I don't know what I'll make it on though. I might need some ideas. I don't know what I'll do. I need something to give away as well. I need to think about what to give away. If I do it, obviously. But yeah. Thank you all. I loved it. Last week was my favorite quiz ever. It was my favorite, and probably one of my favorite streams. It was really, really funny. And just how awful the questions were, but yeah, they were great. It was really, really funny. So again, thank you guys who are consistent to the quizzes, who join. Appreciate you guys for coming along and playing it, because again, obviously, you know, it's I think it's one of our features on the channel, which I really want to be one of our main things. I'm not saying I want it to be the channel. Oh, Crypto Warehouse is the quiz channel, because again, we have, you know, charts, we have actual educational streams and whatnot and videos. But I do really want the quiz to be a big thing, and obviously it's a bit of a not a passion project, because you know, it's not like it's built for, you know, software as a service or anything like that. But I really, you know, I enjoy making it, and I enjoy doing the quiz itself. I enjoy playing with you guys and actually, like, you know, semi-hosting it and whatnot. It's just so fun. So you know, thank you guys for playing along with us. And yeah, but I might be back Wednesday. I'll try very hard, and I'll maybe give away something. I don't know what I'll give away, but I'll give away something. And I think that's it. I've yapped enough. So thank you. Trading is an ocean. That is a really, really good analogy. Yes. Trading is an ocean. Yeah, trying to swim. I like that, Kishan. That is really good. Yeah, it's pretty exactly right. Sometimes it's easy to see what's going on. Sometimes it's calm, choppy, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's a tsunami. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, trading is an ocean. Leaving it off of that, trading is an ocean. I've kept you guys long enough. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. If it's the morning, again, time zone. If it's the morning, have a great rest of Tuesday. If it's not, have a great rest of your evening. Have a great Wednesday. I generally don't think I can keep you guys any longer with my words. I'll see you Wednesday, hopefully. I'll see you Thursday. See how it goes. I'm pretty confident what's going on. Thank you guys. Goodbye.